Was the dumb Hulk actually the smart choice? Plus, Ms. Marvel and the Thing hit the spinner rack. Stick around, we're smashing through Bronze Age Marvel history.
Welcome to Comic Book Ruminations, a podcast where we take deep dives into comic book themes and their enduring real-world echoes. This episode reflects on the Bronze Age dumb Hulk and his childhood angst. We scan a 1970s spinner rack, and our eyes land on a look back at Ms. Marvel and Marvel 2 in one. Written and produced by Anthony M. Caro.
The Bronze Age, Dumb Hulk, and his childhood angst. The Bronze Age Incredible Hulk had a well-earned reputation for being pretty dumb. Take that as an inartful but accurate description of the unlikely hero. From the 1960s into the 1980s, Marvel Comics physicist Robert Bruce Banner physically and mentally cohabitated with a dim-witted green strongman and who only wanted to be left alone and keep his purple pants from ripping. The Hulk didn't start out dim-witted. He debuted with a reasonable level of intelligence and a highly dislikable personality. Poor sales ended the series after just 6 issues. Marvel refused to give up on the character, keeping him alive in guest spots while gradually making him less intelligent and far more sympathetic. As the 1960s progressed, the newly popular Hulk got his own ongoing series, while his intelligence continued to diminish. The Emerald Giant's book became equal parts comedic and tragic. While the dumb Hulk maintains a retro charm, the historical lens reveals creative limitations with the character. After a mere blip of less than 20 years of appearing in a single monthly title, the Hulk grew incredibly stale by the early 1980s. Writers and plotters found themselves facing a critical question. How many unpredictable narratives can you craft with a limited character? The solution was to change. Writers like Bill Mantlo, John Byrne, Peter David, Bruce Jones, and others refused to let the Hulk remain static. Mantlo produced some excellent and now somewhat forgotten stories in which Bruce Banner retained his intelligence and personality while transforming into the Hulk at will. This direction drew inspiration from the popular What If book. Scenarios like what if the Hulk had the brain of Bruce Banner, as seen in What If Number 2, April 1977. The new approach demonstrated that the character's personality could continue evolving, just as it had in the past. Over time, this paved the way for Byrne's maniacal Hulk, Peter David's streetwise Joe Fixit, and many more incarnations. The comics weren't alone in choosing a smarter Hulk. In Avengers Endgame, Mark Ruffalo's raging green Goliath switched to the Professor Hulk persona that dominated the character in the 1990s and beyond. The intelligent and passively aggressive version doesn't revert to Bruce Banner. The two are fused. The raging, brutish, childlike Hulk no longer exists, and neither does the mild-mannered version of Bruce Banner. For the Hulk to survive decades of storytelling, evolution wasn't optional. It was essential. Professing the truth about the Incredible Hulk. Professor Hulk is not the same character as Mantlo's Hulk with Banner's brain. He is a fully realized being with a singular, fused personality. Bruce Banner had long suppressed fragments of himself as a coping mechanism for childhood physical abuse. The dumb Hulk persona drew directly from Banner's repressed rage and childhood suffering, while the timid milksop Banner buried his anger, cynicism, world weariness, and intellectual depth. In The Incredible Hulk number 377, January 1991, those suppressed elements finally fused with the Hulk's power, creating Professor Hulk. The sad sack human alter ego had spent years repressing his pain and potential. The merged version reveals what Banner had hidden all along, fundamentally altering his personality. The result is a far more multi-dimensional character, one capable of anchoring ambitious epics like Planet Hulk and World War Hulk. Understandably, modern comics have continued to modify the Hulk. Still, many fans fondly miss the raw monosyllabic Bronze Age version. Beneath his simple exterior lay intriguing psychological layers waiting to be explored. The Hulk's maturation makes sense when you consider how the readership itself has grown up. The classic dumb Hulk was perfectly pitched for readers under 11, a childlike powerhouse whose simple Hulk smash adventures delivered pure cathartic thrills. That appeal wasn't limited to kids. Plenty of adults enjoyed the character. But the late 1970s/early 1980s black and white magazine The Rampaging Hulk, later retitled The Hulk, already showed Marvel trying to court an older audience with more dramatic, TV-inspired storytelling. Mature readers found a smarter, more cynical, and more devious alter ego for Dr. Robert Bruce Banner compelling. The dumb, pathos-driven Hulk of classic Marvel comics has undeniable charm, but Bruce Banner needs to drive the story on the character's behalf. The dumb Hulk often only stumbles his way into action, but a cure-seeking or job-hunting Bruce Banner could naturally meet new friends and foes in a variety of pulp adventures. That doesn't mean the old dumb Hulk couldn't carry a story or keep readers engaged. The Green Goliath did a fine job for more than 20 years. The old-school, misunderstood version of the Hulk was more complex than he was given credit for, as seen in standout 1970s storylines featuring his love interest, Jarella, in which the Hulk demonstrated greater emotional intelligence. Unfortunately, such stories were atypical for the title. The Hulk almost universally needed help from Bruce Banner and a cast of supporting characters to pick up the narrative-driving slack that plagued the book's star. Plots featuring the Bronze Age Incredible Hulk required simplicity to compensate for the main character's limitations. Despite his shortcomings, the Marvel bullpen's creativity still presented the Hulk with many thrilling adventures. The dumb Hulk gained a loyal following for the same reasons Universal's Frankenstein monster captivated generations of children during syndicated TV airings in the 1960s and 1970s. He was deeply relatable. Looking at both the dumb Hulk and the classic Frankenstein monster with a critical eye reveals two lost children wandering alone in a frighteningly large world. Even a casual young reader, handed the comic on a rainy day, could instantly feel the creature's sad pathos. He is an outsider with no place in society because he simply doesn't fit in, and the puny humans around him work hard to make sure he feels unwanted and unwelcome. The world is harsh. No matter where the Hulk's adventures take him, whether on Earth or across the galaxy, he faces constant antagonistic threats. The universe itself often seems cruel to a genuinely decent being who is hated not for his godlike strength, but simply for how he looks. That fantasy environment isn't so different from real life. For many young readers, the Hulk's existence served as a powerful exaggeration of the troubles they faced. Children struggling with uncaring or hostile adults, or dealing with problems too heavy for their age, could easily see themselves in the wandering, misunderstood outsider known as the Incredible Hulk and feel real sympathy and empathy for him. How dumb was the old dumb Hulk? The Hulk is essentially a troubled child trapped in a superpowered body. As he was apt to say, he only wants to be left alone. Yet the Incredible Hulk asks for little and receives nothing but perpetual torment, from a menagerie of superpowered villains and from driven military personnel hell-bent on his destruction. The Hulk's superpowered villains often symbolize childhood bullies, be they peers or adults, that marginalized children face at school, at home, or elsewhere. Young people who feel different frequently endure constant hostility, a situation not far removed from what the Hulk experiences in his monthly comic. The 1970s. Hulkbuster Army serves as a sequential art version of authority figures who turn life into a nightmare for a strange, overgrown kid with a massively muscular green physique, just trying to survive in a mean world. The Hulk could never fully escape being hunted and haunted by General Ross's relentless vendetta. Ross's personal and prejudiced views cast the Hulk as a convenient victim. Ross's Moby Dick-inspired obsession with destroying the Hulk reflects a direct, overt, and often inexplicable hatred. Why all the hostility? Ross sees the Hulk as an unwanted burden in his life, tied to him through his daughter's relationship with Bruce Banner. Resentment fuels the General's relentlessness. Who is going to stop him? The Incredible Hulk has no serious defenders. Otherwise, someone would put an end to Ross's destructive crusade. Instead, Ross freely capitalizes on the situation to torment and abuse the Hulk. The Hulk's limited intellect prevents him from fully rationalizing why he is subjected to such brutal treatment, but he eventually comes to expect it. He resigns himself to the reality that humans hate him and that he must deal with their viciousness when necessary. This attitude mirrors how a child might respond to the cruelty of the adult world. What a horrible feeling. That's not to suggest that the Hulk feels hopeless. His childlike trust leads him to believe he can make friends. Sadly, the Jade Giant's self-protective naivete gets him into trouble time and time again. The Hulk feels betrayed by the puny humans he foolishly trusted. This trust-betrayal dynamic extends past his relationships with puny humans to failed interactions with superpowered humans, aliens, robots, and others. Stunningly, the Green Behemoth never shirks his responsibilities. He does the right thing and saves the day by fending off any all-powerful threat that rears its head. While immature and dumb, the Hulk knows right from wrong and recognizes that inaction in the face of grave threats is selfish cowardice. Many puny humans who won't leave Hulk alone owe their lives to the monster who took steps to save them. Sometimes those steps involve saving the entire world. The Incredible Hulk never receives any thanks for his repeated life-saving and world-saving assistance. The brute commonly gets blamed for everything, even when a supervillain causes the mayhem. Is it any wonder the character grew up to become a cruelly cynical adult? Not that the mature Hulk doesn't still answer to an angry inner child. The 1990s and early 2000s depictions of the comic character reveal a darker, more violent, and in some ways, downbeat Hulk. Do not take that description as a criticism of the evolved Hulk as much as an observation based on how the character behaves. In modern incarnations of a more intelligent Hulk, anger is no longer simple childlike rage. Instead, adolescent angst becomes the core element of the character's motivations. Such angst never fully disappears, even when the Hulk ceases to be a dumb brute. Angst is simply another face of anger. A more intelligent Hulk may not scream about smashing things, but a cold, underlying, angst-driven rage still motivates his actions. Those actions typically involve smashing things. How else would he behave after such awful formative years? Here is random Marvel spinner rack selection. Number 1. Ms. Marvel's Marvelous, 1977 debut. I've seen tough, but that little lady makes Linda Carter look like olive oil. So says a random onlooker watching Carol Danvers, the future Ms. Marvel, wipe out scurrilous crooks robbing the Third National Bank. How observant! Marvel needed a Wonder Woman, and it was up to Carol Danvers to save the day. The humorous line also highlights something that was not funny for Marvel Comics in 1977. The company had to reference a superheroine owned by the competition. Marvel needed a successful female hero to expand its readership. Carol Danvers primarily played a supporting role until her debut in Marvel Superheroes number 13, March 1968, and she briefly became a superhero after gaining unexpected powers in Captain Marvel number 17, October 1969. The ultra-powerful future. Ms. Marvel never experienced a big publishing push until Ms. Marvel number 1 hit newsstands with a 30-cent price tag and a January 1977 cover date. And what a cover! Marvel may have felt unsure that a new book featuring a hero without an established history would move sales, even with greedy collectors and speculators swooping in to grab multiple copies of a first issue. Marvel did what it was prone to do: draw on Spider-Man to boost sales. The cover presents Carol Danvers in her striking new costume, while Spider-Man's supporting cast looks on and the Scorpion lurks overhead, immediately telling readers this wasn't entirely Ms. Marvel's show. What a cad! What more could you ask from writer Jerry Conway and artist Sal Buscema? Comic book plots were a lot simpler back then. So were marketing strategies. In 1977, Spider-Man was Marvel's bestseller, and a young fan might pick up this comic expecting web-slinging action and a cameo by their favorite hero. Handing the creative reins to Jerry Conway and Sal Buscema showed that Marvel had genuine ambitions for Ms. Marvel. Modern readers may not fully appreciate how impactful these creators were in the late 1970s. Conway's run on The Amazing Spider-Man included two of the era's defining moments: the death of Gwen Stacy and the debut of the Punisher. Buscema had established himself as one of Marvel's most popular artists, delivering standout work on The Incredible Hulk during one of the title's strongest periods. Putting a proven writer and artist on Ms. Marvel suggests Marvel wasn't simply launching another series to capitalize on first-issue speculation before moving on to the next C-list hopeful. Marvel clearly believed Carol Danvers had the potential to become a lasting addition to the Marvel Universe. The issue goes to work at establishing Carol Danvers/Ms. Marvel's narrative landscape. We discover that J. Jonah Jameson wishes to hire Carol Danvers to edit a women's magazine because sales of the Daily Bugle are slipping. Why do I feel there is an inside joke about Marvel's late 1970s circulation figures? Placing Carol Danvers in a job with the Daily Bugle connects her to the Spider-Man universe and the web slingers readers. We also get a serving of old-time Mary Marvel storytelling with 1970s social commentary. Carol Danvers will edit the women's magazine for a hefty fee and won't entertain Jameson's idea of filling it with articles on recipes and fashion, giving the fictional magazine and the very real comic book a topical connection to the women's liberation movement of the era. This approach appealed to older demographics who enjoyed a dash of contemporary culture in their comics. Female heroes had long held a high profile in the Marvel Universe, as seen with characters like the Wasp, the Invisible Woman, and the Black Widow. Ms. Marvel further carried the torch, embracing the evolving cultural landscape of the 1970s through the unapologetically feminist Carol Danvers. Her visually striking black and yellow costume reinforced that image, projecting confidence and power while helping launch Marvel's first modern monthly solo female superhero title. Plot-wise, the Spider-Man connection establishes a logical reason for Ms. Marvel to battle a Spider-Man villain. Jerry Conway had a fondness for the Scorpion, not only using him in The Amazing Spider-Man, but also in other titles such as Daredevil and this one. The Scorpion despises J. Jonah Jameson and hatches another plan for revenge. We've seen this in Spider-Man comics before, and we'd see it again. The main difference here is that Ms. Marvel steps in during Spider-Man's absence. However, there's a significant drawback. Placing Ms. Marvel in Spider-Man's orbit dilutes her potential to shine as a unique character with her own supporting cast. Likewise, her self-described seventh sense, which she later equates with intuition, feels like an unfortunate nod toward the outdated stereotype of women's intuition. clashing with the otherwise progressive pro-feminist tone established earlier in the issue. Combined with the rather pedestrian kidnapping plot, the debut doesn't land with quite the impact it should. On a positive note, Ms. Marvel's battle with the Scorpion delivers the kind of energetic action Marvel readers loved during the era while naturally revealing her mysterious blackouts, amnesia, and connection to the late Captain Marvel and the alien Kree race that endowed her with her powers. The banter between heroine and villain fuels the fight and teases intriguing facets of this new character, enticing readers to pick up the next issue. The "Coming Soon" tagline promising the secret origin of Ms. Marvel is certainly compelling enough to draw readers back for more. In a way, the actual debut of Ms. Marvel comes with the second issue. The inaugural one feels more like a peculiar Marvel team-up comic, where Spider-Man is conspicuously absent, his presence only implied as Peter Parker makes an early exit. Overall, Ms. Marvel #1 feels less like a debut and more like a prologue leading up to the true introduction of this new character. The issue has enjoyable moments, and we can overlook the heavy reliance on Spider-Man, considering how challenging it was back then to establish or elevate a supporting character. There are reasons why Spider-Man made so many guest appearances in other characters' books. I must admit that I bought this back issue years ago after reading another Marvel comic that promoted the Ms. Marvel/Scorpion battle. As a huge Spider-Man fan, I was always interested in seeing his villains appear in other books. We'd also see the Scorpion pop up in titles like Captain America and Daredevil. Unfortunately, Ms. Marvel's sales didn't fly off the shelves. The book lasted 23 issues before Carol Danvers faded into the background. Ironically, the character Marvel once needed Spider-Man to help sell would eventually become one of the publisher's flagship heroes. Ms. Marvel was a bit ahead of her time, and it looks like nearly 50 years later, she's been liberated from C-level hero status. As the onlooker noted, Carol Danvers didn't just make Linda Carter look like olive oil. She jumped from comic book obscurity to mainstream notoriety, proving she's worth far more than supporting roles. And here is Random Marvel Spinner Rack Selection number 2, another go-round with Marvel 2-in-1. Would the Fantastic Four have been such a hit without Ben Grimm, the ever-lovin' blue-eyed thing? We'll never know, but it's doubtful the Fantastic Three would have driven Marvel Comics to great success in 1961. Without the Fantastic Four's sales triumph, we might never have seen Spider-Man, Iron Man, or the many other legendary superheroes who followed. Unlike some alter egos, the Thing is a harsh nickname thrust upon Ben Grimm, a blue-collar, everyman jock who feels like a big brother, or the happy-go-lucky uncle every kid wishes they had. Ben's popularity didn't just help lift the Fantastic Four, it paved the way for his own adventures. His unique charm made him marketable enough to headline his own series, though not a solo one. As was common in the early 1970s, Marvel tested potential books in anthology comics. Marvel Features number 11 and 12 saw the Thing battle the Hulk before teaming up with Iron Man, proven formulas for success back then. This led to the Thing starring in Marvel 2-in-1, a monthly team-up title that hit spinner racks in late 1973 with a January 1974 cover date. The debut issue paired Ben Grimm with Man-Thing, a character popping up throughout the Marvel Universe to help promote his own solo title. Despite those guest appearances, Man-Thing's excellent series ended after fewer than 24 issues. Ben Grimm, meanwhile, powered on with a stellar run that rivaled Spider-Man's own team-up book, Marvel Team-Up. Choosing Man-Thing for the premiere issue was a clever move. The eerie, misunderstood swamp monster made an ideal foil for another misunderstood powerhouse, creating a classic Bronze Age monster mash. Later issues leaned more heavily into traditional superheroes, but the debut established that Marvel 2-in-1 could successfully mix horror, heroics, and Ben Grimm's irresistible personality. Anyone delving into comic book history who wonders why Marvel 2-in-1 became such a successful monthly comic, while so many other characters who got trial runs in Marvel Spotlight and other anthologies fizzled out, needs to read Marvel 2-in-1 number 2. Steve Gerber wrote a slam-bang story that's the quintessential Bronze Age Marvel comic. It packs villains, heroes, and anti-heroes into one wild ride, with enough twists and surprises to keep readers guessing until the very last page. Marvel 2-in-1 number 2 is a great read. A mysterious man plummets from the sky and crashes into the ocean. Namorita, the submariner's spirited cousin, rescues the stranger, but the arrival of the imperious Namor frightens him into fleeing. Sensing the man's childlike mental state, Namorita convinces a skeptical Namor to track him down before he causes chaos or falls into the wrong hands. As the chase reaches the gritty streets of New York City, where Ben Grimm crosses paths with the fugitive, intergalactic observers reveal the stranger's tragic origins. He's Wundar, hailing from the distant planet Dakum. His father, a visionary, predicted Dakum's doom, angering the planet's elites. To silence him, their hit squad murdered Wundar's parents, but not before they sent their baby to Earth, where he remained in suspended animation for years. Awakened by the macabre Man-Thing, Wundar is now physically 23 years old, but he still possesses the mind of an infant, and he has super strength. Lots of it. Wundar's days with Man-Thing are behind him, but trouble begins anew when he lands in Times Square and runs into an already irritated Ben Grimm. The Thing has just endured a lousy kung fu movie on 42nd Street and is spoiling for a fight. Namor arrives moments later, determined to protect Wundar from the foul-mooded Thing. Meanwhile, the elites on Wundar's homeworld fear he'll someday return and challenge their rule once his mind fully develops. They want him dead. If Namor and the Thing save him, the conspirators are prepared to unleash a towering mechanical monster to finish the job. The self-contained story moves quickly and gives every character a reason to be involved, even if the Thing's appearance is delightfully random, a narrative convention that old Marvel comics rarely bothered to explain. Choosing Namor for the second issue was another smart move. His long history with the Thing in the pages of the Fantastic Four gives the team-up immediate credibility, while Wundar serves as a sympathetic mystery rather than a traditional supervillain. Of course, Wundar is a parody of Superman, and that eventually landed Marvel in some legal hot water. Here, though, Steve Gerber plays him more sincerely than satirically. Compared to his debut in Man-Thing, Wundar comes across as a little too close to the Man of Steel for comfort. And yes, Man-Thing gets another plug, but his appearance also ties Marvel 2-in-1 number 2 back to the debut issue, a nice bit of continuity that gradually disappeared as the series evolved. Marvel 2-in-1's next issues featured heavy hitters like Daredevil and Captain America, guest stars who undoubtedly helped sales. Still, Marvel 2-in-1 was always the Thing's book. Without Ben Grimm anchoring each issue, it would have been just another Marvel anthology series instead of a title with its own identity. Was the Thing the best choice for the role? Given the series' decade-long success, it's hard to imagine a better one. Ben Grimm's funny but tragic personality makes him an endlessly compelling lead, while his blue-collar charm allows him to mesh naturally with virtually every corner of the Marvel universe. Marvel 2-in-1 remained a successful monthly title for roughly a decade before concluding with issue number 100. Ben Grimm eventually graduated to his own solo series, while team-up books slowly lost their novelty as crossovers became commonplace during the 1980s. Marvel revived Marvel 2-in-1 around 2017, but it never quite captured the same magic. The original series was a uniquely Bronze Age creation, built around an era when superhero team-ups still felt like special events. More than anything else, though, It worked because Ben Grimm was there every month, reminding readers why the ever-lovin' blue-eyed thing was one of Marvel's greatest stars.
Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of Comic Book Ruminations. I am your host, Anthony M. Carroll, aka Tony M. Carroll, and you can follow me on X at TonyMCarroll.com. Then please follow our Facebook page for Comic Book Ruminations. Again, I want to thank everyone for making this podcast far more successful than I thought it would be. I know there would be much interest in audio essays on Bronze Age comic book themes and whatnot. And apparently there is. If you like to learn or discover these essays in a different format, please check out on Amazon. I've released a compilation of essays from the podcast, Superheroes and Villains Captured, essays and beat dives in a classic comic book. It's been selling pretty good. It's not going to sell a million copies, but hey, if it gets into the right hands of the right comic book fans, I will both be happy, if I guess we could say it that way. Thank you. I look forward to having another episode and reviewing and revisiting and reliving the classic era of comic books, and maybe we'll do some modern ones because I've been reading The Absolute Lion. I'd like to do a deep dive into that. Thank you very much, and I'll be seeing you again in 30 days, maybe sooner. Adieu.